I am very excited to be kicking off this episode. Can I say something? I am having a conversation long overdue with my buddy Wilfred, based in Nairobi, Kenya. We're going to be talking about Kenyan cannabis laws, but I gotta say, Wilfred, he's a publicist for Nisinco PR. We've gotten to know each other over the years. He brought up the fact that we actually haven't had a face-to-face call like this. I actually haven't even had a voice call before this, but Wilfred's awesome. He is in Kenya to talk about the cannabis laws. He is doing awesome PR in the States and everywhere else around the world. And we also talk a lot about wrestling, but a lot of you guys don't seem to be into that, so we'll segment that for another time. But Wilfred, man, awesome to be linking up with you. Thanks so much for taking time. I know it's 11 o'clock in Kenya. How's things doing?
Thank you for having me. And yes, this is long overdue. I don't mind being here at 11 o'clock. This is the end of my work day. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, Wilfred was saying he works the Eastern time schedule. So, definitely just give more props to your international workers that are linking up, especially in the media world, because those folks are putting in some hours for sure. Wilfred, like I said, man, we're really excited to be talking about cannabis laws in different parts of the world. They've done a couple episodes already, talked on Ireland, talked on Mexico, got some more coming up in the future, but really excited to be diving into Kenya and, a little bit about Africa as well. An area that I think a lot of folks just aren't really paying a ton of attention to just yet. I was doing my research, and it sounds like Kenya still has some of the stricter cannabis laws in Africa, even though some of the other nations are starting to progress. Is that the case?
Yeah, that's the case. Kenyan cannabis laws are very strict, but as with everything in Kenya, it depends on who you are, how well connected you are, and you're just where in the country you are. There's some places where the laws are more strictly enforced than other places. In Nairobi, the capital city where I'm at, it's not as strictly enforced. You will find people using cannabis literally all over the city, not in public, but in the privacy of their own homes. They have their own dealers, people they trust to bring them products. It's not as strictly enforced, but on the books, that's what the law says. Our vice president is actively working to make enforcement stricter. He's a prohibitionist in the vein of 1920s alcohol prohibitionist. He thinks
Gotta,
alcohol is just ruining Kenyans. So
you
he
gotta
is
love
trying to
those
make it
regressive
more,
thinkers.
yeah, regressive. That's the word.
Sorry, I cut you off there. What were you going to say?
No, no, I was just saying he is regressive. That's the right word to use for him.
Gotcha. So I have seen that there's been some legislation introduced over the last few years, and you also had a pro-cannabis presidential candidate. Was it George Wajackoyah? Was it? Is that correct?
Yes, that's
So
correct.
are you seeing some sort of progress on the legislator side, or is it or are those bills kind of dead on arrival at this point?
At this point, with the current government in place, the bills are dead on arrival. There's very little hope of swaying the government to the pro-cannabis side. What we're focusing on is winning the hearts and minds of people, and that's something that George Wajackoyah was able to do in larger numbers than most people will give him credit for. When he spoke, during the presidential debates, when his vice presidential running mate spoke, she also brought up, a lot of points that the average Kenyan hadn't thought about. It put cannabis in the conversation for the first time on a
Oh,
national
wow.
stage, sorry. And it led to a lot of interesting conversations and parents asking children, hey, is what this guy is saying actually true? Does cannabis have benefits outside of, making people high? So there were a lot of interesting conversations. I received a lot of interesting calls from people who know I work in the industry, people who know cannabis education is a big part of what I do. Telling me, hey, would you be interested in speaking with my parents about this? They heard it from Wajakoya and they're interested in it. So it was
Wow.
it was an interesting time. He put it on the national stage, and I'm very thankful for the work that he did.
Oh, wow, that's amazing. So really that's kind of just you're starting to see the national movement just starting to take shape at this point. And you're kind of pretty playing a pretty influential hand too, helping out some people in the community.
Yeah, we're starting to see some grassroots movement. It's we're hoping to build an upswell, and I wouldn't say I'm influential.
It's playing your part.
I've just yeah, I'm just playing my part. I've just been put in a very lucky position to, you know, have worked in the industry for as long as I have, you know, just continuously building up my portfolio, my knowledge of the plant, and be able to share it with the rest of Kenya.
And what are some of the early conversations? Like, what are people asking you most about so far?
A lot of people were interested in learning about what CBD is. Uh, when you know when people in Kenya learn about cannabis, the only thing they ever learn about is THC.
Hmm.
They didn't know, there were more phytocannabinoids in the plant. There's so much more that people don't know about cannabis. So the very first thing they asked is CBD, pain management, stress management. Those are things that people deal with constantly in Kenya. We have a very stressed nation, which is sad to say,
Yeah,
and we have a lot of people in pain. So,
sounds a lot like in
when,
America in a way.
yeah, we're sister nations in that part.
In medical pain and overstress. That's not the way that we should be connected.
Yes, that isn't how we should be relating, but it is what it is, and that's what people were mostly curious about. Can it help them? How do they take it? What is CBD? Does it make them high? Is it psychoactive? So, luckily, I had written extensively on the topic, and I was able to direct them to a couple of blogs I'd written. And I was like, hey, just check this out. If you have more detailed questions, just come to me and I can help out.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And how did you yourself get in? You said you've been in it for a couple of years now. How like I personally got in on the writing side about 7 years before America really started picking up steam. How are things with you? It feels like it was even earlier in terms of the movement there. How did you decide to get into cannabis?
I've been in the cannabis industry for 7 years now.
Hmm.
Uh,
Same
and
here.
just like you, started writing. Uh, it was one of the more interesting fields I had written for because I previously used to write for a wrestling website, Sportskeeda.
Right.
I'm sure you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. We'll be talking about that in different episodes for sure.
I used to write for Sportskeeda. I used to do editing and analysis for them. Then, a friend of mine introduced me to cannabis writing. He knew my passion for the plant, and it just grew from there. I started doing more research, connecting with more people, linking up with people like Dr. Ethan Russo. I luckily got his email. He was very accommodating, saying, "Hey, you can check out these resources." It just it snowballed from there. I eventually became the person that your people will call, "Hey, do you want to speak about cannabis at this event?" It just grew and grew from oh, uh, an interest in writing about it.
That's amazing, man. Now we got to get you to come to Brooklyn for some speaking events. Uh,
Definitely, I would love to.
Yeah, man. And so what is it like be working in the cannabis space with, a country with the cannabis laws, at least the laws you said are still pretty restrictive and the country's starting to come around on it. What's it like? Do you have to be low key about it at all? Or do you have any worry about it or can you operate freely about it?
It depends. There are places where I am very low key with what I do. For example, with family, I have a very conservative family. They they just know I do PR, but not
Mhm.
what industry I'm in. Unfortunately, I can't share this podcast with them. I would love to, but I can't.
Not just yet.
But there are other places where I'm very comfortable saying, "Hey, I work in cannabis," and I know people will be accepting of that. But generally, it's just a mix of having to know your audience. It's something I've learned with wrestling over the years. Know your audience, know what you can say and what you can't say.
Yeah, it's reading the room and like you said, knowing your audience. That's the most important thing. And what's it like? I was reading that Kenya still has pretty restrictive laws. I heard, what is it? You can go to jail for 8 to 10 years for cannabis possession. Still, is that true?
Yeah, that's actually pretty true. It's it's one of the sadder aspects about Kenya. Kenya is a very beautiful country, but our laws are very archaic. It's very sad that if someone is caught with cannabis, if the case proceeds to court, because here's something you might not know about Kenya. Kenya is very corrupt. So let's say if I was caught with a couple of blunts, by a cop on the road, if it's, an amount that they consider personal use, we don't have a set personal use amount. Uh, you can probably give them about 20 to $50. They let you go. It's not a big deal. But you know, for people who are caught with large quantities of weed, that's a really big issue. If you're not well connected enough to make the case disappear, you can go to jail for 8, 10 years easy.
Wow. Yeah, and yeah, and it's brutal to hear that too, because seeing it, it seems like other countries in Africa are slowly getting on board, at least with some of the production and stuff. Is that the case? Do you feel like Kenya is lagging behind in that case, or is it more across Africa? Is it still lagging behind on reform?
I feel like Africa as a whole is lagging behind, but Kenya is expected to be a leader on the African continent. So when we are lagging behind, it's a lot worse. When countries like South Africa, Eswatini, Malawi, when they're taking the lead in cannabis, it feels like Kenya is just so far behind, and we're not even playing catch up. We're going back to even more regressive policies.
Right.
We have politicians who want to implement even harsher, stricter rules, and it it doesn't make sense to me. We are we're falling behind in a place that will be such an easy win for us that it doesn't make sense. So yeah, on a grand scale, Kenya is failing. That's the best way I would put it. Kenya is failing when it comes to our cannabis laws when
And
compared to more progressive countries in Africa.
And how do you feel the future of Kenya is looking when it comes to cannabis laws? Do you see any change happening? Do you see it going back towards that regression? What do you see the future looking like over maybe the next couple of years, 5, 10 years?
Forecasting Kenyan politics and just Kenyan policy making is a bit difficult because alliances change very easily, policy positions change very easily. Kenyan politics isn't like US politics where you guys have a well-defined left wing and a well-defined right wing. We have we have reads. When they're blown one way, that's what they'll choose, and they're blown the other way, that's what they'll choose. Just depends on the prevailing social social pressure. So if we get enough support from the public, from people across all 47 counties, we will see legalization. But if we can't generate enough support, then we will continue to lag behind. We might even implement more regressive policies, but I hope we can generate enough support to change the laws.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Fingers crossed. Is there anything anyone could do if they're watching this to, throw support to Kenyan cannabis? Anything you recommend or anything they do?
If you'd like to support Kenyan cannabis, at the moment, the best thing you can do is hire Kenyan cannabis industry professionals. Uh, I'd like to give a shout out to a good friend of mine called Samuel. He's currently looking for more work. He's a talented writer who will definitely, improve anyone's content game. Uh, what anything else you can do? Show the Kenyan government that you're willing to invest in the Kenyan cannabis industry. Money talks, and that's it's unfortunate, but it's what makes the world go round, and it's even more true in Kenya. If the Kenyan government sees there's a lot of interest in investing in the Kenyan cannabis scene, that it can make a tangible difference in our GDP, in our nation's balance sheet, that will change their minds a lot quicker than any national support that we can garner.
Yeah.
So
That's a
should
sentiment I've heard from a lot of folks in a lot of states. I've heard from, just in American cannabis, even just trying to push for diversity and inclusion. Instead of appealing to the heartstrings, just show people how much money they can make, because whether you like it or not, showing people how much money they can make seems to be what actually motivates most of these people, whether you like it or not.
yeah, if you show them that this will put a couple more shillings or dollars into your wallet, they'll be more motivated than telling them, hey, this is actually good for society in general. Because your
Yeah.
money is the great motivator.
And that is once again which links our countries and probably most of the world together, my friends. Well, Wilfred, man, actually, we'll also want to give a shout out to Sam. I've worked with Sam a lot. He is a great writer as well. So, yeah, we'll give a shout out to him as well, and hire Wilfred and a lot of other great talent as well in Kenya. Wilfred, we want to wrap this one up. Like I said, we're definitely going to have you back to talk about wrestling, but to close out on just, a brief overview of Kenyan cannabis here, anything else you think that the viewers need to be knowing about, or how can they stay in touch with you if they want to learn more?
Uh, if you want to stay in touch with me, best place is on LinkedIn. I am super active there. I love LinkedIn. It has its ups and downs, but easiest place to get me. What else should you know about Kenyan cannabis? I'll be speaking at an event in September, speaking about medical cannabis alongside some wonderful names such as Lydia Kariuki. She's written for Tap-ins and Testing, and just a lot of wonderful publications, including My Cannabis. I'll also be speaking alongside some doctors, getting their opinions on medical cannabis in Kenya and whether we should, legalize or not, just from a medical perspective. Uh, just keep us in your thoughts. And if you're ever interested in investing in the Kenyan cannabis market, we are here. We'd love to show you around, and we'd love to show the Kenyan government that, hey, we have people from all over the world who would be interested in bringing jobs and uh, what's the word? Just kickstarting our economy with cannabis. So yeah,
So
there's hope.
need some
Yeah,
people to help prove the concept, like you said, that there's. Sorry to cut you off there. Get some people to just prove the concept that there's hope and prosperity in the cannabis market, right?
yes, that's all we need.
Awesome. Well, Wilfred, man, I really appreciate you taking the time. We are definitely going to link up again. For this one, man, really appreciate you taking the time, and we'll drop all those links down below. So be sure to get in touch with Wilfred on LinkedIn and follow along with him. But yeah, man, thanks so much for your time, and hopefully this won't be the last time we talk.
Definitely not the last time we talk.
Thanks, buddy.